for presenting. People ask all the time, I want to be on stage. I want to be going around. I want to be on stage around the world, presenting and delivering my message. And this is the same with business in general, isn't it? We want to get our business out there for people to be picking up what we're putting down. So when we become world-class, you're taking luck out of the whole game. You're taking luck out. You're creating your own. You're really in charge of creating your own destiny. This is why I love this whole thing around world-class. What does it look and feel like? It was really interesting during this last Presenters Masterclass at Vision Villas. And there's something that I've started doing, and it's making a massive impact on my life and everything that I'm doing. I stop and ask myself in every conscious moment that I'm aware of it, in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already standing in my greatness, how do I react or act right now? And this has changed everything. So when I had people in the masterclass and saying, when they said the word stuck or lost or I can't, I had to bring them back down to that one question in 1 year's time from today, when you're already standing on greatness, how do you react and act? And it's never how they thought they were going to in that moment, because they were doing that from old self. Does that make sense? So it's really important for me that when you are making those decisions, you're doing it based on not who you are or who you were. It's on who you are going to be. And so you're becoming that already. Does that make sense? So therefore, you're never stuck anymore. There's no stuck language. There's no I'm lost language. You're basically always asking yourself in 1 year's time from today. And if you think about that from a quantum leaping perspective, then you're always jumping ahead 1 year. So therefore, you're never stuck. I use this. I always do this because that must be the hamster wheel. I think that's like my natural hamster wheel with my hands. So you're never stuck. So being world-class is a beautiful byproduct of your business, of your value, your skill, and your character. This is just business 101. So there's no point in, this is what I was saying to the guys last week, there's no point in being a world-class presenter if your business is not world-class as well. How are your systems managed? How is your promo material looking? Do your emails, I mean, this was a big one for me because my assistant had terrible grammar and spelling. So when she was doing my newsletters and helping with they were going up with really glaring mistakes. And so we had to fix that immediately. Everything that was going out, everything that's happening is this world class? If you're going to compete, you have to be the best. When you're the best, you rise above, mediocrity anyway. That can always just keep going back to, in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness, how do I react and act in this moment? This is even something like getting as simple as trolls on the internet or bad emails or news or challenges, and you just go, how do I take on this challenge now in 1 year's time when I'm already great? Therefore, you are great right now. Your value, knowing what your value is on stage, knowing what your value is as a business. World class is knowing what your value is. When I talk about value on stage, I always say to people, it's not your story that you've been sold. It's not what you've been through. It's how you've packaged that up and now handing this on to your audience. What is the value? What is the change you're creating for people? What is the problem you're solving? And then what are the tools that you are giving to help them to implement that? Does that make sense? If I narrow that down and talk specifically presenting, presenters have been, or public speakers have been sold a story that it's your pain that you've been through is your story on stage, but your pain that you've been through holds no value at all. It can be summed up in one sentence. I've had some pretty tough challenges in my life, but here I am, and this is what I learned. Now here's your value. Character. I like this one. Anyone at the top of business, whether it be presenting or pole vaulting or you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is you're doing, character for me seems to be the when you have world-class character, it can take you to the top. And remember, on the journey to the top too, you're picking up and becoming better as you go. You know, you're picking up clients and leads and making more impact as you go. But character is how you pick yourself up above when you fall down. And I was saying here that the true greats are those that are able to rise above their circumstances. And I'll go back to an example from last week's masterclass. There was a lady in there who came in and she had a very perceived idea, an idea of how she was going to do something. But what she had come to Bali for was because she had lost her passion for what she was doing. So when we were doing her authority model, like we were creating, what are you an authority in? She put it up there. And once I started pinching or pulling the masks down, she melted. She had a bit of a meltdown and admitted that this wasn't what she wanted to do anymore. Now, in the back of my head, somewhere in the back, I was like, oh my God, we've got 4 more days. We've got 4 more days. And now you've just decided that you've just realized that you don't know what you want to do anymore. What are you going to do for the next 4 days? So there's a little piece of doubt in my head going, how is someone going to come back from this? Because that's a big, when you have a meltdown, that could send a lot of people into that little rabbit hole, the spiral. She came back the next morning. She'd spent most of the night under her light at her desk in her room at Vision Villas. And she came back with one of the most engaging talks on what it was like to go through a crisis. And these are the steps to get back on track. And that was her talk. And it was one of an amazing example of rising above your circumstances. And it was like the little wild card. Positioning yourself as an authority is world class. I'm just going to give you an example of how I do this in my business, because to make it relative, you know, I'm a presenting mentor. I do a lot more than that, but everyone knows me as the presenting mentor. I take presenters from good to world class. I used to, when I was a little bit, what I didn't know. And the way I used to speak on social media was attracting a lot of healers and people who didn't know how to articulate their message. And it was people who were really beginners. Like it was people who were looking for confidence on stage. And after 25 years, my skill level, if I can be as bold, is far above that. 25 years, you'd hope so, to be fair. So I was getting these people in the workshops all the time. And when they're at that level too, I was finding that these people didn't have that money available that they could spend on my retreats or the next level up or my 8-week programs. So I was kind of going, okay, there's something broken in my business. What is that? And I realized that I wasn't standing out as the authority, that I needed to position myself and only tell people about my high-end products. Stop doing one-on-ones. Stop telling people about my entry-level products and just tell people about my high-end stuff. That was where I was positioning myself. And I only started speaking in my language, which is why I went to world class, to people who were ready, to people who wanted and can envision themselves as world class. That changed my whole business when I was very specific about who I'm dealing with. And that doesn't mean that I don't deal with beginners. It's just that I don't talk to them out loud on social media. They still call me. They still go into my lead magnets and my funnels and my system. And I have a qualifying call and I just place them where they need to go. Does that make sense? Instead of speaking to that level and having the experts kind of going, I really want to work with Andrew, but I don't think these workshops were for me, but they were actually right for them. So positioning myself as an authority was one of my biggest learnings of last year. I love this one. What I see in a lot of many entrepreneurs, business people, presenters, people in general, is that true bone deep belief that not only you're enough, that you are an authority, you're an expert, you've got value, you deserve to be heard. And when you embody that, when you wholeheartedly embody that, life just you turn up for life, really, to be fair. That ability to embody who you are, that character, and be an authority. And embody was actually a word I wrote on a post-it note. And I do this all the time because I was running out of words. I was running out of spaces on my body to write these words. So I started using post-it notes. It was a lot smarter. I wish I'd have done this 10 years ago. So now embody was just a post-it note. I didn't need to have it tattooed. And the change that created on me there, every time I thought about the word, after a while, I didn't have to see that note. I just was walking down the street and I'd think embody, that's right, embody. And it would change my physicality. And it would change the way I own my phone conversations or the way that I approach my business, because I was embodying and believing what it is that I'm doing in my area of authority. And I remember going on stage in March this year, and some people who hadn't seen me in a while came up and they said, Andrew, you're so different now. And I was like, what's changed? And they said, it's like you believe what you're saying, you're really embodying it. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. It was like the perfect thing for me to hear. So when I feel like there's an area that needs to, that there might be some lack, and I fill it in by simply giving myself a word. When I used to feel that life wasn't moving or going in the direction I'd like, I always notice that it's because I've stopped making decisions. I always know it's because I've stopped making decisive decisions. And now that doesn't happen. In fact, decisive is a really good, if you lack being decisive, it's a really good word just to have as a post-it note. Being the example of which you speak. Terri, you know I love this one. I like this. If you're going to walk the talk, then be that example of which you speak. For me, this is like the easiest way for people to follow you. If you're going to influence people, if they're going to follow you and want to be a part of what it is that you're doing, you need to be the example. This is super important. Have you got any questions so far? I can't hear any.
I'm muted. If you want to write into the chat box if you've got a question, and then we'll unmute you.
Lovely.
Or unmute yourself. It's probably easier.
Do you know what? Who have we got here? Mary, Sarah, Celia,
yeah,
and Maggie.
Oops.
For those who don't know, I've been in TV and film for a long time. I lost my desire to be in that, even though I kind of had probably many people's dream of an ideal life. And I just remember getting out of bed one morning and going, I don't want to do this anymore. And I changed very fast. I took some time out. You know, we all go through it at some stage. It was actually a scary realization because for 19 years, I knew every day why I was getting out of bed. And then one morning I looked at my feet and went, oh shit, what's just happened? This is a beautiful transition. And I realized that I had this dream in my 20s that I was going to change the way that people communicate and present. In my 30s, I was a full-time TV presenter and remember presenting to camera and always feeling like I was cheating the audience. I knew that there was something deeper. That how could the audience get all of me and not just a tiny little piece that I wanted them to see, which was normal presenting. I'm going to show you something funny. I created a rite of passage today.
There's a couple of things, Andrew, while you're doing that.
Sure.
Maggie wants to know what's the dates for your next workshop. She could. She's unmuted. She could have asked you.
Melbourne. I've got Melbourne and Gold Coast coming up. Melbourne on 28th of November, and then Gold Coast on the 5th of December.
After that.
What about even your ones over here, Andrew? When are you? I noticed your
I have a Bali retreat starting, another masterclass starting on 28th of May. Lucky I just saw this today. 28th of May, and then Portugal on the 29th of June.
That might be the one.
They're both, Bali's 4 days, Portugal's 5 days. Both have the benefit of being outside of Australian winter.
You're telling me that's why I'm leaving and going to live there.
Oh, wow. So Bali is outside of winter always. And also Susan Wanma is on the call. Hi, Susan. And she says, no questions, but I like how you word things.
This is funny to say that. Someone in the retreat said the same thing. And I had made a conscious choice when I was in 1999 to start speaking in sound bites. And as funny as that might sound, and my friends, and I started to speak very clearly and in sound bites. And I was always allowing myself the time to choose the next right word. Now, when I first started doing that, again, it's like a behavior. It becomes, you're very conscious of it, and it feels very clunky at the beginning, right? Because it's not you. It's not your normal way of doing things or how you've been trained. And I started making a conscious decision to speak in sound bites and playing with my voice. And so I got teased mercilessly by my friends. So for like 6 months, everything was like, oh, really, Andrew? Oh, that's lovely. And constantly taking the piss out of me. I was trying to say piss like an Australian then. But what's funny now is 20 years later, 19 years later, this is how I make my living. So I think I'm having the last laugh. Maybe I might get it. Yeah.
Cool. Caroline says, this is hitting the spot today. Thanks, Andrew. By the way, you guys can unmute and speak as well if you choose to. Can I just say something, Andrew? I mean, this is really cool because, I mean, today we are going through with this group, we're going through, we've sort of started with the end in mind and getting the group to go through and understand that in order to achieve what you want to achieve, first you've got to believe, like you're saying. And it's a lot of what's holding, and this will resonate with many that are listening at the moment, is what a lot of what is holding them back is a belief that they can actually do it. So you can give them all the structure and everything, but you can't give them the confidence. They have to learn how to get that for themselves. And I'll just finish this. This is the challenge with like some of these that are not achieving their results that they set out to achieve when they leave, is because it's that lack of belief that they actually can, or letting themselves off the hook because it's okay that I didn't do it. I can do it. So it's perfect timing.
So, you know, you mentioned confidence, and confidence for me is a byproduct of knowing your shit. That's the technical term I use. So people always talk about confidence on stage. I want to be confident on this stage, Andrew. It's almost like it's a character trait, but it's not a character trait. This is why you can get introverted people or shy people on stage who are incredible, because they know what it is that they do and how to clearly articulate that and give their audience tangibles and value and create change and shifts. That gives you confidence. You know, otherwise it's just bravado. It's kind of like this, you know, it's not bone deep. And you get on stage and something goes wrong and your confidence disappears. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's not a character trait. The other one I was just thinking of is to create change. I mean, this is when it gets a little bit deep, but create change. If we're making decisions based on who we were as early as yesterday, if we're making change, I mean, if we're making decisions based on our emotions and who we were, then everything's been based on our past, right? So if we keep making all these decisions based on who we were yesterday, we're going to keep getting what we had yesterday. So this is when this is where I now start consciously choosing to ask myself that question in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness. How would I react or act right now? This is the purpose of that. So every single day, it's actually moving you in a different direction. You're constantly changing every day. You're literally changing as a human being every single day. And the thing that's starting to click for me is the more that I live my own values and I'm disciplined to my own values each day, being decisive, being honest, being truthful, being, having, I have a high output of effort. Like I have a lot of effort. If people are going to effort, I can out effort a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? If that's the thing that I could control. But I'm realizing that the more that I hold myself to my true values every single day, and all my decisions are based on it, and I'm aligned with it, the faster the whole process is speeding up. It just keeps going. The trajectory of how fast the business is growing is way faster than I could have expected. But I'm actually having more fun than I ever have had. I mean, it's pinch me moments all the time, and when you get the speed wobbles, which is what we do, right? Sometimes we get the speed wobbles, and we might not have the right support because we've outgrown our support group, or our business isn't set up. It's just asking myself that question in 1 year's time from today. It brings me back to the center. It brings me back to what is the right thing now, based on in 1 year's time. I know it got deep, but that's how I roll.
So from Andrew, from the perspective of like those that have, potentially just finished a program or might have been a couple of programs ago, what you teach is so relative to everything that they're doing within their business, because it's out there presenting. No matter in which format, they're out there presenting, and having that gap of, like I said, it's like in order to achieve, you've got to believe. So we can give them the tools in order to achieve that. But from your perspective, for those that you work with, that what's the difference between those that are actually going, wow, yep, I get it, and go and do it, as to opposed to those that are going, I get it, but don't do it? What do you believe is that defining distinction between those two types of people?
One is obviously implementation. There's those people who are just ready. They know they're ready, and they start implementing and taking the actions of which you tell them to take. This is why I stopped giving my advice to my mum and offloaded it to my younger brothers. Is because a month later she'd ring up with exactly the same pain point and go, oh, X, Y, and Z. And I go, Mum, did you do what I told you to do? Because I know this works. Oh, no, I haven't done that. Well, I might have done it for 2 days and then I stopped. It wasn't working. And you go, okay, cool. You just get to a point, and this is what I'm talking about, people and clients in general here. You just get to a point where there's always a percentage of people in a group, a program, or a retreat. There's always some who just take it and run. Don't they? They just run. They're like, if Andrew says do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z. And then literally a month later, they're off. I mean, there's people from the masterclass last week who were getting clients by doing what I told them while we're at the retreat. Do you know what I mean? And that of course gives them that little bit of momentum, and they start getting excited and going, oh my God, this stuff works. Yeah. I also believe that without a doubt, our biggest fear is not our fear of failure. It's how amazing we are capable of being, our greatness. And I likened it to this, and I said this during the retreat, and I was like, oh my God, that's really good. I'm going to remember this. It's, if you believe, I believe that we're actually infinite, capable of infinite. There's no end. It's impossible for there to be an end, for there to be a limit. So if you think of an endless piece of rope, an infinite piece of rope, and it's how far in this lifetime can you get down that piece of rope? Do you know what I mean? And the fast you seem to go is you're getting out of your own way. You know, we have getting in your own way is making excuses and reasons why you can't do it, not implementing. You know, you're finding ways to stay in this whole series of stuck where every single day is the same as yesterday, because you're continuing to be the same person, obviously. Do you know what I mean? Making the same decisions as yesterday, based on the same experiences and emotions. So you're just not perpetually growing. But people are afraid of how great they can be. This scares the shit out of people. Because what might happen, you'll probably lose a lot of friends. Your change creates chaos. You might actually have to live up to all those little thoughts that are in the back of your head or in that gut that are telling you, I know I can do this, but holy shit. What people forget is that it doesn't happen in one little click. You don't go from here to here in a day. You know, you learn the ropes, and the character is built on that journey. But I always say to people, you know, that first, I get just as much, I feel like I celebrated just as much, and I got just as much satisfaction as my first workshop when I had 3 people in that in Christchurch, New Zealand, is now when I have sold out retreats or fly around the world and you know and speak in London, wherever. There's no difference in the feeling that I got from both those. You know, I think in that with 3 people, I made like $500, and man, that was, for me, that was amazing. I just got paid $500 for doing something that's really easy. And now I just replicate that on a bigger scale, and I've got smarter and like, okay, now we're dealing with these people. I need models and templates and clear guidelines, and do this, and this is what we can implement, and going deeper and expand. There's no point in people becoming great presenters if they don't know how to use it. There's no point in being a great presenter and still having a mindset of someone who isn't good enough. So now I work on all those things. Again, that's just that world-class business, all the aspects of it starting to line up. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
My lovely
Awesome.
mums like yours.
Yeah, you're reading the question. All right, so let's open up to who else may have some questions or need some support. Thinking about everyone's promotion plans and where you're at. The biggest thing, and I said this to this group today, that people don't show up because they're embarrassed. You know, I haven't done anything, or they'll show up and they won't want to speak up because it's like, I haven't done it, I still don't feel worthy, or whatever. Now is the moment that you start. You know, if you have stopped, or you know the momentum has slowed or whatever, now is the moment that you can actually start, pick back up and do it. So the idea now is to speak up. And you know, Andrew's a successful businessman that has, you know, like I said, learned the lessons, seen massive opportunities, probably missed opportunities, Andrew, because you haven't been in the right frame of mind to accept them, or you haven't seen them for whatever. But yeah, it's making sure that everyone is, you know, speaking up and asking for that support. So who has a question either directly related to what Andrew's talking about with his speaking, and it's a promotional side of who you are as well. It's about you as an identity as well as your business, or directly related to your promotion plan. So who has a question? And you know the rule, if I've facilitated the program, if you don't speak up, I choose you. That's
you know, can I take you through this model? It'll take about 1.5 minutes.
You can.
I think it might make you laugh. I made it this morning. I was talking about during the retreat that presenters have been, every presenter comes up as this stiff wooden object, and they've been taught to go and stand in the middle of the stage and ground themselves and then pretend to be someone that they're not. So there's no engagement. And I realized that most presenting teachers teach the technical, because technical is something that you can pass on. I've learned technical. I know where to look. I know where to stand. I know how to speak. These are the technical aspects. I can create a story, and you pass it on very easy. Passing on the artistry of something is a lot harder. So here's our rite of passage, and I think this is anywhere in business, not just presenting. At first you suck. And this is where you learn the amazing things. This is where you have the most, I have some of the most, I can make an audience cry by laughing on cue, because I'll tell them my stories of when I was at this level. When I'm doing auditions, when went to a Lord of the Rings audition, I didn't realize it was Lord of the Rings, and I thought it was just a tiny little New Zealand film. And I walked in, and my heart dropped on the floor when I saw the caliber of the actors in the room from Australia and New Zealand. And I went, oh no, I haven't prepared for this. This is 1998, 20 years ago. Wow. I walked in, and I was learning my lines furiously, properly in the waiting room. And then I walked in, and the lady goes, so you're an elf? And they went, oh yes, of course, I'm an elf, sure. Right. Now, specifically, what does an elf do? And she's telling me that, you're light on your feet, you've got big ears, and so I'm trying to be light on my feet and do these things. And then she goes, you do know you've got a standard British accent, right? And I was going, oh yeah, oh sure, yes, sorry about that, I forgot about that. And I didn't know what standard British accent was. All I had was gangster. So all I was a fucking British gangster. And so I was this little delicate elf on light feet, swearing and with this really bad British gangster accent. And I just was one of those moments where I just wish the earth would swallow me up and I could disappear. But I look back now and I go, oh my God, you were resilient. Do you know what I mean? People would have given up after one take or not even have gone in. And she gave me 5 takes, and I look back in hindsight and going, she was probably just laughing at me and having fun, to be fair. They probably still talk about that bad audition in 1998. But these are all these things we talk about character. Like I never gave up. And, this story now is something I can tell on stage. And when I do it, I'm going through the motions, and it makes an audience just laugh at me. Do you know what I mean? Without these experiences, you don't get to move through. When they're here, these stories are wonderful to tell. Imitating is when we copy, we model ourselves on somebody else. This is business too. This is how I modeled my business. I looked at a whole lot of successful people. I modeled my business around it. I did what I do, my presenting inside of that system, but I copied their models. After that, in presenting, it's the technical. Now I'm learning, okay, I don't have to imitate anymore. Now I want to learn how to do this. I start going to classes. I start going to business school. I start to learn how to do this properly. Then we break through, and those good ones become artists. They realize there's an art to this. They don't have to think about the technical anymore. They realize that this is deeper than that. They can connect with their audience, And when you get to this part of artistry, you stand out. The technical people don't stand out. This is mediocrity. This is where everyone hangs out here and has a cup of coffee and hang around the water cooler. This is where you have your own water cooler. The artistry of what it is that you do. And this is where you start to stand out and you start to get that real bone deep belief, because you start asking the question, how deep and how far can I take this? This was the coolest question I asked myself when I realized that when I got to here is when I started realizing that I know nothing at all. And when I got to this, past the artistry point, when I realized that this was infinite possibility, that how deep and far I can go with this didn't have a limit. It was just based on how much time I've got left and how fast I wanted to go deep into this art and take this and teach people. How many people can I influence? How many people can I communicate and affect and create change in this time? So I call that the rite of passage. There you go. That was 2.5. Well, it was a bit long.
Very, very cool. You took it off, and I was going to say something about it. It's kind of it follows 2 parts of what we teach here, and that is, the first one is about the spectrum. So it's the levels on the spectrum, and if you look at the lower levels of the spectrum, like the infrared and red, at first you suck, and that's the thing is knowing that at first you do suck, but there's steps outside of that, and the further up the spectrum that they actually move, it's getting until you get to that place where you've got your own water cooler, where you have got that artistry, and that is just going, hey, it's all right to suck. It's like Andrew says, You know, you go, now I'm going to let you suck. Like, now's your opportunity to really suck. And I think that's the key thing. And the other side of that, because you've got the levels, it's like, you know, with business, it's that level 1 business where at first you suck, you've got one customer, you're just trying to work with that one customer in order to get it right. And when you know you've got it right, then you can move up to the next step, which is level 2, which is then, okay, well, I don't suck as much now, so I can move up and move to that next step, whatever it is, you've taken it off, which is when potentially I'm, you know, looking to support 10 customers and so on and so forth. So this works in perfectly with the promotions. You must have known this, Andrew. Anyway.
I must have, yeah. I was actually, do you know what, I was just thinking the other day, I was like, what were the levels that I went through personally? And I laughed at my old editions, and, you know, I laughed at my old editions, and then I went, okay, then I started copying, and I used to copy other actors. And of course, you know, when you copy, that meant my range was only as big as the range that I've seen those actors do. Makes sense? Yeah. Then after that, I started going, okay, I need to do this a little bit better. Let's learn the technical. Let's fly around the world and get the best people to teach me. Then I realized after a while of flying around the world and getting people to teach me is that I didn't like the way that people were teaching. And I felt like it was fraudulistic. There was something missing. So I moved through to the artistry, and then and now I'm moving into the space of, I mean, every single day is insane. Like, I can't believe I'm this lucky to be this congruent with what I'm doing. Maggie, what do you mean by this? Andrew's course is a total manifestation.
I did say that Celia could speak first, Andrew.
Okay, sorry. Celia, this is your life.
Celia, can you just unmute yourself? Or I don't know. Yeah, you're unmuted.
Hi.
Hi there. How are you?
Hey, Celia.
Okay. Good to see. Yeah, so I'm just in a very stuck kind of zone at the moment, and I'm working on a promotion plan to use my flow consult. Oh, sorry, my dog just decided to join in.
It sounds like your dog's just about on its last breath.
Yeah, go.
Dies or something like that. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of how I'm feeling.
So Celia, help me, like specifically, you're working on a promotion plan for Flow Consultancy, but struggling with really going for it. What do you mean? What do you mean not truly going for it? What does that mean?
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to do was get in front of a different audience with my consultancy work, and I liked the whole approach of the Flow Consultancy. So I said, right, I'll get on board with that. So I trained as a Flow consultant, and I've done some profiling with some people, but I haven't really got out there and sold it.
And what's stopping you do that part of so I see this all the time with entrepreneurs who've got an amazing program, and they won't either close the deal or they won't go out and talk about it. Is it fear of not being enough, or feedback or critique, or what is it?
Yeah, I think I'm just preempting all the things that will go wrong with it, you know.
So that's just the reframe. So if you were to use that question right now, if you were just to say, in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness, in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness, how would I react or act then? So how would you, if you were in 1 year's time, you're already great, Celia, like life has changed, you're abundant, shit's getting really good. What would change in your in your action right now, or your reaction? Coming from a winner's mindset, really, isn't it? It's completely reframing what you just said before. Because if you want that life, if you want to, then you have to be that person. This is an amazing observation that I've discovered, really, or for me, was that goals don't get you there. You know, it's not the goal, it's the person you need to be to have the goal. And so by becoming that person, the goal is actually just naturally attracted into you. You know, the goal becomes very accessible. It's not this high, out of the way thing anymore, because you actually come to the level where you're actually looking at that goal going, well, actually, I am this person now. And quite often you get up to that point and you go, I don't even want that goal anymore. Like, there's so much more abundance happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if you it'll feel clunky for a month, maybe even 2 months. It's a natural thing for me to do now, to stop every time I go to act or react and ask myself the question. Like, it's becoming my new normal. But it'll be clunky for a little while. Does that make sense, Celia, or is your internet is?
Sorry. Does that? Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm doing, is just breaking it down and doing the little steps, and but yeah, there's probably a bit of me that doesn't believe in it enough to really go for it.
Do you know? I mean, when I started out doing this, and not that long ago, to be really fair, I didn't imagine it to be like this. You know, I wouldn't have imagined these retreats. I wouldn't have imagined going to Portugal. I wouldn't imagine doing world tours. I didn't go out to do this. So by just moving forward, it kind of opens up so much more opportunity that you never even saw there. We talk about infinite possibility, right? And I think this is what this means in some ways, is that we get so focused on this idea of what it's meant to look like. And if that's not spinning your wheels, you don't move forward. But if we actually focus on being our best versions of ourselves, you know, what are the areas that you would like to change about yourself, your character, your values, you know, how decisive you are. If you start choosing these words and becoming them, your outside world changes immediately. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it can't not. Every little decision we make about who we are literally affects is reflected immediately in our outside world. This is why, for the first time in my whole life, I actually think life is fair. I've never said that before until just recently. I was lying in bed. It was like midnight. It was the last time the last time of the day that you really need to be having these thoughts. And it was the first time. I used to think that the gym was the only fair place. You go to the gym, you lift weights. If you lift dumbbell curls, then you'll get big biceps, and that's fair. I was like, that's fair. Life wasn't like that, but now it seems that the more that I keep making and holding myself to being the character that I know that I need to be to have this life, I'm realizing that it's super, super fair. Like, it's bizarre. I didn't see that coming. It wasn't. If you've got things that are holding you back, ask yourself that question 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness. How would I react or act right now? And then do that. Like, come up with what the answer is, and then action that, and then action that, and then action that. Because that will, without a doubt, 100% affect the outcome. Do you know what I'm saying? It can't not. If you're making different decisions than Celia normally does, you have to get a different result.
Yeah. And that I think the other thing that was holding me back was I was getting bogged down in trying to decide which path I should be on, and, you know, was this the right thing to be doing in the first place? So that idea of just sticking to being the best version of yourself and making those changes rather than the content changes, like, makes sense.
I think the goal changes anyway. I mean, people are asking me, you know, what's the content of the Portugal retreat? You know, last week in the Bali retreat, and I was just laughing. I was like, I can give you the bullet points or the backbone of it, but I don't know who I'm going to be in 9 months' time. You know, so all I know is that it's going to be more epic and more detailed and more influential than it is now. It can't not be. But I don't want to go and give people, it's going to have these 5 bullet points, and then when we get to Portugal, they're like, dude, this is completely different. I just know it's going to be epic. Do you know what I mean? I can feel it. I already know it. If I just stay out of my own way, it will be. This is why I don't plan tours too far out either, because if I give them a title and the content, in 6 months' time, I'm not even that person anymore, and I can't do it. I just know that the way that I present and the way that I teach and mentor people is going to be better than what it is now. So I just trust that process, that they're going to get more value than they ever expected.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Celia, and thanks, Andrew. We've got 5 minutes, so if you want to check in with Maggie, and we've also got Sue, you might want to look at the chat.
Nice.
Andrew.
Maggie, you asked a question. What was it? Oh, you said Andrew's question to manifestation.
Okay. Because when I was at iLAB, Andrew, and I remember looking down the camera at you when we were practicing for our videos, and I got a very, very special feeling, and I've only ever had that feeling once before. And the synchronicity that's happening here is because I committed there and then that I would do one of your courses, and you're on my vision board. But the irony of it is,
I don't know if that's weird or I don't know if that's just freaky or if that's actually quite good.
To do one of your courses is on my vision board. But the irony of it is that when you said about the one in Melbourne and Gold Coast, I knew that wasn't going to work because I'm actually on my way to the United Kingdom and to Portugal, where my son is about to have, he's not having a baby, his partner's having a baby, and I'm becoming a granny. But I've also chosen that in Australian winters, I'm going to be living part-time in Bali and part-time in Portugal. The synchronicity is extraordinary. That's what I mean by manifestation. But the only time, and my heart's just like pumping out of my chest with this, because the only time this has happened is I did a course with Deepak Chopra years ago. And as he walked up onto the stage, I got this really, really strong feeling, same as when I looked down the camera at you. And I got this rush, and I thought, I'm going to be working with you in 6 months. And by the time I'd done the 5 courses, I worked it out that I was on stage with him at the Entertainment Centre in Sydney in front of 2,500 people 2 days before the 6 months was up. So yes, you are a manifestation.
Nice.
Look forward to seeing you in Portugal or in Bali.
Nice. It's funny when you see those things. With Portugal, I'll tell you about your manifestation really, really briefly. I wanted a retreat in Spain in the mountains. That was my vision. I said I wanted mountains in the middle, infinity pool looking over the mountains, incredible view, and I wanted to be grounded. But also there's that Portuguese and Spanish thing that's just more relaxed. It's relaxed, you know what I mean? And this random person sent me this link and said, I was thinking of you when I saw my friend has just done up a village, an abandoned village in Portugal in the mountains. And I looked at it and went, oh my God, like I've asked for that. I asked for that. It's not in Spain, but I asked for exactly what this person has just built. And I asked him, what dates can I have? And he goes, Andrew, I finished this last week. You've got the whole year. Like, you choose. And I went, oh my God, this is it. This is me. And I just paid the deposit yesterday and locked it down. And there was that little boy in me that was going, Andrew, but what if no one turns up? And what if this doesn't work? And I laughed. And I went, well, it looks like I'll have a really expensive holiday then, won't it? Do you know what I mean? I'll have a whole retreat space and I'll get my family over there. And you look at those, I think, Celia, this is what you said, what could go wrong? You know, and that question could be, you know, when you lay down a whole lot of money for a retreat space in the middle of nowhere, well, it's not in the middle of nowhere, but it's this little bit, there's a bit of fear coming up. But you laugh and you go, well, what's the worst case scenario? Like, my family comes over and has a whole week in an amazing retreat with an infinity pool, and you know, we have 12 bedrooms to ourselves. You know, one for each. That's the worst case scenario. I feel like I want to share this story with you, Maggie, while you're here, and everybody else. And you know, the only reason I can share it is because I know it doesn't come from a place of ego, and it doesn't come from bravado or any of those things. I was in a French restaurant 2 weeks ago on a Monday in Melbourne, and from out of nowhere, I started to get this feeling way deeper than my gut, like way deeper. I can't explain with words. All words feel clumsy. They don't do it justice. But it came from way deeper than my gut, way deeper than me. And it started bubbling up. And this emotion, of course, I'm trying to suffocate this feeling because I'm in this French restaurant and people are looking and he is looking at me going, what's happening? And I just start, like, not just crying, but blubbering. Like, the proper blubber and the tears. And of course, trying to hide myself from other people, but I couldn't. It was just so big that I couldn't stop it. And it had to come out. And Danny said, babe, what's going on? What are you feeling? And the words that came out of my mouth was no thought. It was, I'm going to be the best in the world at what I do. And it came from such a place of knowing. I get emotional telling it. It came from such a place of knowing and truth that from that day onwards, I've never had to worry about anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? That sense of relief, that sense of it's going to be okay. And that from now on, I all my days have been far more relaxed. And every action I'm taking, I just know, like it's a knowing now, not a maybe. Does that make sense? It was
by the best in my speaking. Thank you.
It was crazy. I will never be able to explain it and do it justice. But it was something that I've never felt it again in my life.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. There is actually Sue and Susan that we didn't get to. So the real reason I have to wrap up now is because I have got Startup Grind here tonight that I'm interviewing someone. So I need to actually get off for that. So it's if you want to stay on and answer those two questions, or
sure,
speak to them, that's fine. But if everyone's okay, if I leave you, I can't leave someone in the room waiting to be interviewed and I'm not there. So David and Mary, I see you really well, and everyone else that's on there. It's so awesome to see you on. Hopefully I get to be on one of these again very soon and get to connect with you. If not, please do contact me individually. As I've said, I'm always happy to have calls with each and every one of you whenever you need it. Our next webinar is the 13th of November, and James will be putting that out there. I believe James is actually on this as we speak. And thanks, Andrew, for all your support. I look forward to this group experiencing you next week. And on that note, I will say farewell, everyone, and I'll chat with you soon. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. I'll stay on. I think Susan or Sue, you've got a little question there.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks, Terri.
Thanks, Terri.
Thank you.
If you can hear my microphone.
Yep, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, well then just signal the message from me. I was just wondering where you could direct me to find out more about what you do, because I've only encountered you tonight and also through iLAB. And you had also mentioned a Facebook challenge, and at iLAB I didn't have the opportunity to find out what that Facebook group was called. So yeah, that kind of information as well, please.
Lovely. I'll put my website in there, andreweggleton.com. The challenge is every 6 weeks I run a 10-day Facebook Live challenge. It's always very exciting. Exciting isn't even a word I really use. It's just incredibly supportive. It's like the same feel as you get in the retreats. It's the same feeling you get in these workshops. It's incredibly nurturing, supportive, and people helping each other get through and break through the little barriers. So it might sound like this wouldn't happen in a Facebook Live challenge, but people go on everyone goes on their own personal journey. And you've got the support from everybody, a lot of love and a lot of support. And it doesn't matter how bad or good you are. It's just in the doing, and you getting your own reward or result out of it by day 10. I have a really simple tool that I use, because people seem to feel, or they've been taught, that when you present, you need to become a presenter, as in, it's your perception of fantasy of what a presenter looks like, and it's not what I believe is true. So my tool that I do in these challenges and in all my workshops, really, all my teachings, is don't change state. Like, the most basic thing is don't change state. Who you are all day, every day, when you're brushing your teeth, when you go and get milk, when you're speaking to a friend, when you're mowing the lawns, there's the same person who turns up on camera and the same person who turns up on stage. Now, that takes away any procrastination. It takes away the fear of having to be in the right mood. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not feeling it to do a Facebook Live today, because we want to put our best foot forward and be something that everyone's drawn to. But yet the thing that our tribe is drawn to is us. When our eyes sparkle, when we're congruent with who we are. And that's when you're on stage, in that state, you're dangerous, because people don't know what's going to come out of your mouth or what you're going to do. See, these other presenters who walk on stage and they station themselves at a place, and then they speak with their hands and they point over here, and it's so calculated that there's no danger. There's no moment to moment stuff. It's just like an over practiced little pile of shit. I mean, that's just my technical speech. So when you don't change state, there's no pressure on you anymore. Like it becomes that easy. This is what I love, is that when I get out of bed, I kind of laugh to myself, because that very person is the person now who can turn up on camera. That person who can turn up and walk on a stage with not having to be somebody else or impress people. They will either engage with me because of the artistry and what it is that I'm doing and the value that I'm giving people, or they won't. And there will be, I'm to a point where if you got 100 people, there will be a minority that don't like me. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, but that's okay, because those minority are just not my people. That was that thing in my 30s I was saying, where I wanted people to see who I was. I wanted to be able to give them everything. So then if they were going to make a decision they liked or didn't like me, at least it was an educated decision. And if they didn't like me, then I can accept that, because I knew that there was nothing that I can do. You know what I mean? I can handle that. So I'm not worried about these people who don't like me anymore. It's all about how congruent can I be on stage, off stage, on camera, off camera.
I love it. I got that very clearly from you at iLAB. So, so for the Facebook group that you run, the challenge that you run every 6 weeks, I was really sold on it at iLAB, and then I got back to Australia, and that was the Monday you were starting. Yes. Where do I go to find that, or how do I contact you to find out more about it?
It's called the Facebook group is called The Heart of Presenting. The Heart of Presenting.
Okay, and I actually had that in my notes. So if I do a search on Facebook for that, I'll find that group. Is that right?
Yep. I'll there you go. The Heart of Presenting.
Beautiful.
You can practice your lives in there anytime you like, and again, I encourage people to lower the bar. The lower you've got the bar, people think this is strange, but when I walk on stage, there's 2 things that I do. One is I always just say to myself, "You got this," and the other one is I cheekily say to myself, "Now how can I fuck this up?" And I'm not asking that as doing that. I'm lowering the bar on myself so much that I'm exceeding my expectations by word go. So if I haven't tripped over coming up the stairs, or if I haven't, gone blank when I'm looking out to people, I'm already exceeding my expectations. So I start giving myself these little mental pats on the back. I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, you're killing it. You're killing it." You know what I mean? And so, Celia, it's the opposite of, I start recognizing all the things that are going right. Not all the things that are going wrong or premeditating them, but just working moment to moment, moment to moment. And as I'm perpetually growing in these moments and getting more excited and allowing and then it's that dance now with the audience on stage. The audience can feel it. They start to feel it, like, this dude's having a lot of fun on stage, isn't he?
Mm. So hearing you speak like that, it just makes me think I bought and cancelled something from an American speaker, and it felt so evangelizing and it felt so staged. I actually didn't think I could bear to sit through it.
Yes,
When you said the word dangerous, I'm thinking, yeah, it didn't feel dangerous. It felt very, very preachy, and it makes me wonder, Australian, then, yeah, if that's going to be palatable for an audience that obviously likes that.
You see what I mean, you saw where technical was in that graph, right? You know, it sits in the middle, and that is where most people sit. You know, that's their holy grail. That for them, that is mastery. I've mastered this speaking thing. I'm technically really good. So they actually don't know there's further to go. And it's a very easy place for people, for a teacher or a coach of presenting or public speaking to teach, because it's really just paint by numbers. It's I learned this, now I'm passing this on to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
okay. Cool.
It's very paint by numbers, and the trouble is you get carbon copies of each other doing the same stuff. You know, if you got 5 presenters coming onto stage or doing a video, and you know they're all technically good, then they're all probably doing the same stuff as well. You know, they're told to stand. I mean, there was a wonderful, there's lots of wonderful people last week, but I spend most of my time helping presenters unlearn what they've been taught. You know, they come on and they move and they're breathing off stage, and they're breathing and getting themselves psyched up, and then they walk on in this kind of like in a suit of armor, and they ground themselves, and then they pull their heads up and they talk to you as if this is really powerful. And I start laughing. I'm like, where have you gone? Who am I watching? Who is this person? Because I don't recognize you. You know what I mean? And what happens is if a guy came on next, another woman came on next, and they've all been taught that, it all looks the same. And so you stop listening to the words too, because it's just like blah, blah, blah. It's the same. There's no feeling there. There's no change. There's no, it's I don't know, it's carbon copy kind of, it's the basics of stuff. We have to go through that part of the journey, but you can actually skip that part out. Like you can skip that there has to be a certain way things are done out.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You can be way more powerful by learning how to deliver, by focusing on the value of that you're going to give your audience, focusing on the tools that you're going to give them, and the stuff that they can go away and implement straight away. So what is the value of your talk? That's way more important than you being seen as an amazing presenter on stage, because that won't change anybody.
Yep, good point. Cool. Sorry, my camera's not working. I feel a bit rude, but that's cool, and I'll mute myself again.
Don't lie. You're in the bloody dressing gown with hair curlers on, aren't you?
The hair looks pretty good, but I've looked my iPad and don't know how to use it. So thank you for your time.
Like that. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm going to go out the door and jump on my bike and go to the movies. I've got a really cool in the morning, but it's time to tune out.
Are you going to go and see McKellen, the documentary about the actor?
I'm actually going to go see, I'm in Bali until Thursday, and I'm going to go and see the movie Viper with a friend of mine, catch up with a friend. A movie that I can just tune out with.
Sounds good.
Have some fun.
Cool. Enjoy
guys,
yourself.
Welcome to join the group. I'll just I'll add yourself in there, and I'll accept you through easyandreweggleton.com. That's my website. You'll pretty easy to find, and all the retreats. I believe that the workshops and retreats and everything is on there now as of today. Yeah, I actually haven't had a look at the retreats yet, but it's gone live anyway. So, all right, team. Thank you very much, everybody. Have an amazing evening. And no doubt I will see you around soon.
Thank you, Andrew, so much.
Have fun.
See you, Maggie.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.